Today is Thursday, September 4th, 2014. Hello, my History 115 students. This is your Professor Donald Collins again. I want to talk to you a little bit this week about how to get ready for your term paper, specifically around citations and references. Normally I run out of time in the class to actually go over this in a lot of detail. I assume for the most part that because of the plagiarism prevention exercise and because of some of the materials I cover in class, as well as going over the writing samples, that you actually know from the writing samples what it is I'm looking for in terms of citations and references. But I've noticed over the semesters that apparently isn't true for probably about anywhere between a third and half of the students. So I've made an adjustment this particular semester to try to spend more time talking about what it is I'm looking for in terms of citations and references. Why do I use the term citations? Why don't I just say footnotes or endnotes? Because I don't want you to do footnotes and endnotes. For this particular course, you're required to use Chicago style for references and citations, or to say it in full, the Chicago Manual of Style 14th or 15th edition. For my purposes, what I want you to do is to move away from footnotes and endnotes, specifically because they're harder to do. Even with the new technologies from Microsoft Word, where they automatically lay out the footnote for you or the endnote for you, the fact is you still have to make adjustments to it in terms of what each professor may be looking for. So there are several things I want to make sure that are clear. First and foremost, if you don't know the American Psychological Association style or format for doing references or citations, do not use it, because it is required that you use Chicago style for this course. If you do know APA style, however, then you can use that as a substitute for Chicago style. But the main style you should be using is Chicago style if you don't know that format. They're similar in that sense, which is why I want you to try to use one or the other. There is a document in Leo under class resources, which is under course resources, which is under content, known as the Citations and References document. It's a document I've put together that is 8 pages in length. One page deals specifically with citations because they're fairly simple actually to use. The rest of it deals with all the different kinds of references that you could be using. If you were doing a research paper, like for a senior thesis course in history or something along those lines, then really the bulk of that remaining 7 pages would come into play. For the purposes of this course, you're writing one term paper, 4 to 5 pages in length. You really should only be using at most 3 sources: your textbook, my lecture notes, and or the modules that are on Leo that deal with world history. This is an intro-level course. You shouldn't be looking up stuff on www.ask.com or Wikipedia or history.com or anything else, unless you have a real understanding of how to use sources that are outside of required readings for the course. So I just want to make sure that that's clear as well. But anyway, I want you to use the Citations and References document that I've given you for the course as your methodology for doing citations and references, period. Alright? That means that if you decide to do Chicago style, but you want to do the style that is not listed for me in this course, then you're going to be out of bounds a bit. If you decide to just go all together and use an entirely different methodology like MLA or AP style or Turabian or something along those lines, then you will definitely be out of bounds, and I will take points off for that. I want to make this clear that this document, which says Citations and References on it, where it starts with citations and goes down to the bottom of the page, talking about references for both Chicago style and APA format. If you're not using that, then you're really not doing what I'm asking you to do in this one regard for this course, to keep everything uniform. Now, What do I mean by citations? Not footnotes, not endnotes, but in this case, what's known as the author date system for referencing a source in your paper at some point. And you can do this any number of ways. My preference is for you to do this at the end of every paragraph that you write, as long as you're referencing something. It doesn't just mean anyway, that you're just quoting from your textbook, and when you quote from your textbook, you put down your citation. No, it means that if you're paraphrasing at all from the textbook, if it's something that is not common knowledge, meaning that you had to get the information from somewhere, whether you got it from me, whether you got it from another classmate, whether you got it from your textbook or from the modules, whether you picked it up from another source, you need to have at the end of each paragraph in which you've done that a parenthetical author date system response. For example, as it says on this sheet, right here in the middle of the sheet, I want to make sure that everyone sees this, right, while you're seeing my face at the same time. There's Bentley and Ziegler, the year is 2008 on here, and the page number is on here as well. Bentley and Ziegler, comma, 2008, page 323. One of these is in Chicago style, the other one is in APA format. But either way, it's the last name of the two authors, in this case, the two authors of your required textbook. Not with an ampersand in between or plus in between, but with the words AND in between. That's how you do it. The year of publication, in this case, it's the previous edition from 2008. And then the page number at which you're pulling the information from. In this case, for the most part, you should be listing page numbers for your textbook, because the entire textbook isn't on China, or the entire textbook isn't on early civilizations. You're pulling from a section of the textbook or a page, a particular idea. So please put down a page number or numbers for that citation as well. Now, you can also do citations within paragraphs more than one. You don't have to wait till the end of the paragraph to do it. If you have a direct quote and it's in the smack dab in the middle of the paragraph, at the end of that quote, you should have a citation. That would be the way to do it. Now, some people might say, you're expecting us to do a citation at the end of every sentence. I'm actually not. In a 4 or 5 page paper, you're talking probably no more than a dozen times where in which you need to cite a source. At most, maybe 2 to a paragraph, 6, 7 to 10 paragraphs, you end up with a neighborhood of 10 to 15. So if you end up with 12 or more, you're probably doing a pretty good job in citing your sources. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. You're using this document and you're using this methodology of parenthetical author date system for either Chicago style, ideally and preferably, or you're doing it for APA format only if you know how to use the format. And they're similar enough to where it more or less should look the same. Okay? As far as when to cite and when not to cite, when to quote, when not to quote, methodology is pretty simple. I expect you to be able to write your paper for the most part in your own words. Even if you're paraphrasing materials from your textbook, from the lecture notes, and from other places, I still expect you to be able to write in your own words. And you sprinkle quotes in. You shouldn't even be doing block quotes really at this point. Block quotes are lengthy quotes that can be as many as, say, about 50 to 60 words worth of quoting from a particular source that's in a block paragraph format, meaning it's single space, the margins are a bit in on that block, and then you cite the source at the end of that block. Well, there's nothing particularly profound about anything that in the lecture notes or in the textbook where you need to have a block quote. So you should just be using quotes in a very specific, judicious manner. You pick and choose when to use them. It's kind of like when you season food. You don't want to put too much salt on your food because it won't taste very good. It's too salty, it's too much. With this, you want to sprinkle here and there quotes, and then have everything mostly in your own words. And what I mean by your own words is not that you took a source from Wikipedia and you typed it and you cut and pasted and typed it up yourself and saying to me in response, I worked very hard on this because I looked it up and I saw what this other person wrote, and then I had to type it up, and so therefore I worked really hard at that. That's not, you might have worked hard in doing that, but those aren't your own words. If you didn't think up all those words originally on your own, they're not your own words, and you were quoting, but you didn't put a citation down. If you did write all that and put a citation down anyway, it's still plagiarism. So which is possible, and keeping the number of quotations you use to a minimum. Quotations shouldn't be more than 15 to 20% of your entire paper. So if you write 5 pages, 4 of them should be in your own words. Ideally 4.5. So you really want to be judicious about when and how you use a quote. As far as references are concerned, that's just another word for bibliography. So you want to say bibliography, say bibliography. If you want to say references, say references. They're not the same as doing a citation in the middle of your paper, because the references are a full-blown, full-length citing or providing information about your source. So in this case, and I'll show you this to you on page 2. If you can see a bit of page 2 here. It's also, again, on Leo. You can download this, where you see the author's full name, the date of publication, the full title of their book, and where it was published. And these are just examples. I have Bentley and Siegler listed within all of this, but these are just some examples. You alphabetized your list of sources, by the way, and you just do a list at the end of your paper. You don't have to have it on a separate page. It can be, you can put 2 spaces in between your concluding paragraph and where you put the words references or bibliography down, and then right underneath you list the 2 or 3 sources that you're using for your paper. And then that's it. And again, it should be either in Chicago style or APA format. Do not mix up the 2 formats. APA format requires you to use the first letter of the first name of each author. You don't list their full name, right? So that's one of the differences. And there are also capitalization differences in terms of APA format too. Not every word in APA format is capitalized, whereas for Chicago style, most of the words in the title are capitalized. Those are the 2 key differences you need to remember. I talk about this in the citations and references document, but I want to reiterate to you that those are, even though they're minor differences, time and again I see people combining the two types of styles, and that's why I prefer you to use Chicago style in APA if you actually know the style. If you don't know the style, you shouldn't be using it. So I just want to reiterate that as well. So I just want to make sure that part is clear, that in citing and referencing sources, it's important to use a style that I deem from my course to be appropriate for you to use, and the most importantly, so that you don't end up trying to create your own style, trying to be all freestyle about which kind of what you're going to do. I've had too many students who decided that I'm going to do footnotes anyway, but not only am I going to do footnotes, I'm just going to create my own style. Not a style that's even recognized by anybody, but just create my own style. And that's, not only is that wrong, it just shows a complete disregard for some of the criteria that I expect everybody in the course to uphold. So that's part of what I want to make sure that everyone understands. One other thing, fact of the matter is, this is my 31st course at UMUC, and I've taught approximately somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 courses over the last 20-something years. And I can say for a fact that of the previous 30 courses I've taught at UMUC, for at least a third of the courses I've taught anywhere else, there's been at least one student who's attempted to cheat or plagiarize on their paper by either saying that what they had copied directly from a website word for word wasn't plagiarized because it included citations. Well, if you didn't do the citations yourself, but it was done by the author, you in fact quoted all this material from word for word, then in fact you're still plagiarizing. You didn't come up with the citations yourself. So if you didn't write it yourself, if you didn't go through the struggle of trying to cite the sources yourself and make sure the cites are proper, then it's still plagiarism. If you are quoting word for word throughout the paper, even if you're putting the quotes and quotation marks, even if you're citing sources yourself for that, that's still a form of plagiarism. Simply because you didn't write most of your paper in your own words. In fact, if most of your paper is quotes, then did you write anything on your own in your own words by thinking through what you wanted to write and in the order which you wanted to write? If the answer is no, then you're still sort of cheating. It's not on the same level as just taking something else someone else is writing from a website and plopping it down in a document saying that it's yours. So I want you to be cognizant of the reality that you need to write mostly in your own words, that you need to be very meager and judicious in how you use quotes, and the cite sources and do your references properly based on the information I've given you in the citations and references document, and not go off on your own in doing so. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or talk to me in class over the next couple of weeks about the questions you have regarding the citations and references or anything else regarding the term paper. Thank you.